What's up, YouTube? Hey, what's up, YouTube? I'm back again with another video react. This time, I saw this interesting thumbnail today suggesting that Street Fighter 6 is harder in some ways than most modern fighting games or than most older fighting games. So this is by Coast Guard. It says Street Fighter 6 is harder in some ways. Check it out. I saw like the first couple minutes of this, but wanted to do a full react just to see what his whole argument was. And then, yeah, I'll give my opinion as we go through. So let's check it out.
A common sentiment among fighting game players is that these games are getting easier.
Yeah.
And to a certain degree, they are right. The goal is accessibility. We live in a different landscape.
So the goal, accessibility, is an unfortunate phrase, I think, because accessibility really doesn't mean ease. Accessibility is meant that you should be able to play and enjoy the game if you have particular innate disadvantages or disabilities. For example, if you're colorblind, there should be a mode for if you're colorblind to help the game, make the game easier for you. If you have any auditory disabilities, to make it so that hearing isn't as important for your experience with the game, right? Accessibility isn't about it being easy. And I think that while it is kind of splitting hairs, that is part of what is one of my problems with gaming nowadays in general. For example, if you played Psychonauts 2, they literally made God mode in the game an accessibility feature. That to me doesn't make any sense. It literally means that you can't die or lose. So playing the game itself is now totally optional to win the game. That's not accessibility at all. That's giving God mode. That's just easy mode, right? So accessibility is probably not the best word. I know that it is the word that we use, right? It is the word that we use. Being someone who really likes words, I don't like the misuse of words, but I do see what he means. So we'll keep going. I know it's splitting hairs, but it's just something that kind of pisses me off.
Than we do 10, 20, 30 years ago. And something market, something player base. This has been done to death. But while some aspects of the game are undebatably getting easier,
yeah,
the floor for combo execution has certainly been lowered. Just the floor. There are
so the floor for combo execution being lowered, yeah, 100% right. But I think that when it comes to execution, combos really aren't the most important part of execution. And I think that a lot of times we try to put things like combos, for example, as just like a fighting game default. Like, yeah, you have to do all the combos. Combos are not an innate characteristic of a fighting game. It's not. It doesn't have to be in a fighting game, right? Like, so yes, are combos technically in every fighting game? Yeah, even in Street Fighter 2, hyper fighting combos existed even when there wasn't a combo counter. There was really a glitch. But combos, as far as just the average nomenclature of games, is to me a mistake that has been created by the culture of gaming. Because now every fighting game is designed with combos and combo scaling in mind, which means you design characters to do combos rather than allowing players to discover combos, to discover interesting situations, and for emergent gameplay to happen. It's the actual beginning of the emergent gameplay, I guess you'd say, emergent gameplay collapse in fighting games is once combos become a thing everyone talks about because it's, you know, a thing that someone that's really good at a game would do. And then you raise the execution floor, lower the execution ceiling to basically create a false execution floor where everyone can just do a very basic and ugly combo to do half-life or 70% damage. That to me is a big mistake. Because let's look at like Samurai Showdown, right? Like in Samurai Showdown, the game has combos, yes. But more than likely, your combo is a kind of a Street Fighter 2 combo. You're like doing medium slash into Shoryu and doing like 30% off of that, and you're fine with it, right? A lot of the times when you get a clean hit, you just want a heavy slash, right? Or you want to get an SSM if you get a punish, or an ESIN if it's the late stage of the game you haven't used it yet and you want to punish. Then those are all single button, single press instances where you're going to be getting a maximum damage for the most part, with the exception of like the 2-hit combo. Like, fighting games can be successful and fun without having combos. And on top of that, a lot of the execution that I miss from games isn't even fighting, isn't even combos. Like, I don't necessarily miss hard combos. When I think about the execution floor in games, a lot of times I miss movement. I miss unintended movement like wave dashes. I miss option selects and pulling them off. I miss difficult things like parries and just defends and hard things to do that, yes, have been put into, like, some of them have been, let's say, City of the Wolves. So when I practice City of the Wolves, all I'm practicing are like the fun, hard defensive stuff, right? But there isn't really anything to practice in Street Fighter 6 because they made everything really easy to do. Like, I guess you could practice perfect parrying stuff, I guess, but like that's what practice is. So I don't know. I have a whole thing about that, but we're only 26 seconds in and I'm already talking too much.
One frame links. That doesn't mean that everything about the game has gotten easier, because I would argue that Street Fighter 6 has added additional difficulty. There's the obvious one, the defensive execution required in perfect parry. There are moves that you just need to perfect parry to answer.
Sure.
But I'm not here to talk about that again.
So you don't have to perfect parry any of those moves. So for example, this modern mode Shoryu beats that. You just win the whole game. This is just an uncancelable move, so you can probably even DI that. It's uncancelable. You can just Shoryu whatever she does after this. You don't need to perfect parry this at all. I don't know if it means these specific examples, but let's say like when I first started playing Street Fighter 6, the main thing I wanted to practice was I was playing Ryu, and I was mainly practicing against Blanca Balls and Honda, just like heavy Shoryu level 3, and that was just all I was gonna do. Because if you ever see it at like low ranks, you just take half their life off of that and they just lose. So I wasn't even worried about these moves. They all have obvious wind up too. So if you're paying attention and you know they want to do it, just heavy Shoryu level 3, they lose.
But I'm not here to talk about that again. That's what these videos were about. But to begin, let's bring back that video. The character from this video, and maybe the character from this video too. Bison and Aki. I think you can probably guess the correlation from the two. We'll go through their unique mechanics, then end off talking about the universal mechanics that add just another layer of thinking.
So yeah, they both place something purple on you and blow it up. Cool.
And challenge to the game. Let's start off with Bison again. I already went over the character in a previous video, so I'm not going into every single one of his moves again. Though I might have another video about his standing light punch soon. The move I want to really focus on, the move they really built the character around, is his Psycho Mind. While he may be a combination of his Street Fighter 4 and 5 versions, the main...
I'd say, yeah, he kind of is. The Street Fighter 5 version was so good, though. It was so good. It was so much better and more fun than the 4 version. Like, Bison in Street Fighter 5 actually had a window of being, like, a top-tier character. Whereas in Street Fighter 4, he was always mid-tier. Like, he was decent... I think somewhat oppressive in some matchups. It really depended on the player, which is a good thing, right? Like in Street Fighter 4, a lot of times things depended on the player. But he wasn't like Sagat. He wasn't even really like a Viper or a Rufus. He was just freaking in Bison, man. They just walk forward, back, heavy kick. That's kind of what he did.
In addition, in this game, other than removing charge on scissors.
I hate that, by the way. I like charge on scissors. I like charge moves. All my mains throughout most of Street Fighter have been Shadaloo characters, like Vega, Balrog, and Bison were like my mains. For a little while, I mained Sagat, but then I went back to playing the charge characters because my favorite characters are always charge characters. So the lack of charge moves kind of makes me upset.
Is this mine? On block, this is awful. Don't do this on block, you're minus a million. But on hit, you plan on mining them.
Firstly, I gotta just give a shout out to his background. He like painted like a painted over Shadaloo background here, and it is pretty cool. I'm just noticing now, like he made the on background stage here. The quality here is great.
Psycho Mind. This remains on them for about 5 seconds, but does go away if they land a hit on Bison. There is an incentive to be aggressive.
I actually rather that I'm talking too much. I actually would rather that was a command throw again. I think it was more fun as a command throw because Bison has all this speed to get up to you, but when he's up in front of you, it's a very simple strike throw mix like everybody else has. The best tool he has is scissors, of course, spaced well, and he kind of beats the footsie game, particularly the crouching medium footsies game. But then it's like you don't really have any sauce, to be honest. Like the character just isn't what he was before, and I mean that from the state of like, I'm not saying I was the best Bison player at all in Street Fighter V. I was at best Diamond Rank Bison. But what Bison had that was fun was he had a lot of interesting utility that he had. So, for example, his dash was a teleport. He could pick a V trigger or V skill that allowed him to absorb projectiles and hold them, and then eventually throw his own projectile. He had a psycho orb that could be projectiles and also had different properties for Oki or for creating plus frame scenarios if you get that charge version on you. And his confirms were really nice because of the psycho flame he had. So like you could do a lot of things. Not only that, but I feel like his Devil's Reverse was faster and more fun. Whereas in this game, Devil's Reverse is the most pointless move in the kit, even worse than in 5. And 5 was already nerfed from 4 because ever since 5, you couldn't Devil's Reverse backwards. So I'm already just kind of tilted on Bison's current thing. And this was my main at one point too. Like I mained Bison all like for the end of 5, and I tried maining him in 6, and I just don't like the character in 6, honestly.
But usually you want to respect the mine, because it is very scary. Let's say that you are respecting Bison and decide to block it out, and either the bomb detonates on its own after 5 seconds, giving Bison immense plus frames, or he can detonate it manually by connecting another mine on block or a Psycho Crusher, which also gives him plus frames. Either way it goes, it'll give him another turn. He definitely gets rewarded heavily if he lands this move. But like I previously said, you can just get rid of this if you hit him.
Okay.
But the vast majority of the time, that's not a great idea. The mine is already really good on block, on another turn, drive ship, kind of forces out a drive reversal, all that good stuff. But that doesn't
Right, so like we get, right, the point of Bison, if Bison does what he's supposed to do in a given matchup, and his game plan works, then yeah, he creates scenarios that are very difficult to deal with. That used to be a V trigger skill, now given to you in its fullest, right? So that is strong. That's strong to do. You know, it creates plus frame scenarios. It, like you said, you know, puts different. It changes what you and the opponent have to interact with there. It makes some of his block strings a little bit more interesting. So yeah, that definitely is good. I'm not seeing where this is getting to the Street Fighter 6 is harder though, because to be fair, all of that existed in 5. And even 5 was still easier than 4. Everyone knows that, so we'll see.
Compared to what happens on hit. Let's say you have a bomb on you. Then you decide to either not block, get caught teching, or they block your reversal. If the Bison player has any drive left, you explode. Immense damage. You don't want to be pressing even though you could nullify Bison's advantage, because the risk reward is very heavily skewed in his favor. You die off of this.
Right.
But this video is about difficulty. Again.
Yeah,
so
okay.
let's get into the additional difficulty that this mine puts into the game.
Cool. So now we're getting to the difficulty, and I'm sure like the whole thing isn't going to be just about a Bison mine, right? Even though he's using Bison and Aki, as he mentioned earlier, as like examples of how the game is more difficult, right? There's probably something he can take from this that will apply to all the characters. That'll be like, hey, this is why the game is more difficult. But I have a hypothesis that his idea of difficult and my idea of difficult are, as I think older players or 09ers like myself would explain difficult, are going to be definitely different from each other definitionally. So we'll see if our definitions are the same or not, but I have a hunch that there are different definitions.
The addition of the mine on your opponent forces you as the Bison player to change your routes.
Okay.
You'll be doing different combos, different pressure strings, have more to consider when routing your combos.
Yeah, but if you get a counter hit, same thing. Right, if you get a counter hit, if you get a straight hit, if you've been practicing confirms, right, then it's the same thing, right? Like so like the fact that they have a mind state on them, I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about whether or not you're going to confirm with like an EX Psycho Crusher versus EX Scissors or something, right? Like, or whatever the optimal is for your situation versus the EX Psycho Crusher, right? Like, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about for strings, you're talking about maybe, hey, I have a string that you, like if you have a string that you lab for when they have scissor, when they have bomb on them, that all comes down to practice. You can practice that stuff. It probably isn't very, I don't know if it's very fun to practice. It depends on how open the situation really is. But I just don't think it's very much deeper than what we can like see or gain from like some videos online and just kind of know everything.
This isn't a Street Fighter 6 thing, but it is a Bison thing.
Yeah, it's Bison.
This is an additional thing to think about, an additional thing to consider, and a bit more difficulty.
So I at least like the fact that, you know, he heads off. He's very, very good at understanding that what he's saying. He's very, very good at articulating exactly what he means while also caveating when he knows what people may say in response, right? Like how I've already said, yeah, that's of course a Bison thing, you know, and I'm sure he's going to go to other characters that he's like right there with it. So, I mean, this is a very, very intelligent, well thought out person, clearly. And he does clarify, okay, it's a Bison thing, but to be honest, changing your combo routes, that's a layer of difficulty, but it once again doesn't fit my definition of difficulty. And I don't think it fits the definition of difficulty for most people that complain about difficulty. So we'll see what he says going forward if we ever agree.
It may be entirely in your favor, but it's just another thing to optimize. And for your opponent, it's just more incentive to take throws. The risk reward is so skewed that just sitting there is probably the analytically correct decision.
Risk reward is the death of fighting games. The risk reward calculation, I think, is the death of fighting games. Because if you're thinking about it and you're talking about it online, then devs are thinking about it and they're going to design the game that you're not going to complain about. So they're going to try to make the game as fair and balanced as possible. So they're going to create scenarios that are easily discernible mathematically. And when they seem unfair, they'll create a mechanic that just goes around the situation and then the game gets stale. So that risk reward stuff, like, it sucks.
So why are people choosing to reversal or tech here? 3 layers of thinking. First is the player knowing this is a bad decision, but they know their opponent knows it's a bad decision, so they would never expect them to make such a risky play. Then this gets called out, and now they explode. But this is all pretty cut and dry. More to think about, harder to find the optimal route, harder.
Ooh, okay, now we get to it. So, more to think about, harder to find the route, thus more difficult. So, this is interesting to me because he hasn't said more difficult than what yet, or as opposed to what. You know what's funny, guys? By the time you're seeing this take, I have been talking to myself about this very same freeze frame like 4 different times. Because I'm trying to articulate the best way to respond to this. And I think that this is the crux of the video. This is the part where we talk about the actual disconnect in fighting game players between difficulty then and difficulty now. And it may be done to death, but I think that this has to be understood that this is not an objective measure of difficulty or in any real way describing real difficulty. It's describing, because this doesn't make the game hard to play. This doesn't make the game hard to learn. This makes playing an opponent, somewhat difficult, but I don't think in a unique way from fighting games in general. See, when I think about difficulty in fighting games, what I think about is how much practice is required to perform, right? I think about how difficult is it to manipulate my character on screen. I, and probably a lot of other people, think of fighting games from an arcade mentality, where you went to a public place where you put money up, and in front of people, you had to perform and execute something difficult very well because you practiced it a lot. Just like in Dance Dance Revolution, how you want to put a song on like heavy difficulty or play one of the challenge songs and see if you can ace that thing right in front of all those people in public playing Dance Dance. You went home and you grinded that song so you could nail it while you were there. In a fighting game, I and a lot of older people approached those games the same way. We wanted to control our character on screen with precision and skill, and we wanted to earn that. We wanted to start the game being shitty, looking shitty on screen, having our character look dumb, and then watch our replays as we've improved and be like, wow, I'm so much better now. Or beat people we couldn't beat before, land combos we couldn't land before, do movement techniques in just frames we couldn't do before, and see ourselves becoming slowly one with this game. I'd say we thought of the games more like pilots than like players. It was something you did so you can get good at doing the thing, even if you weren't playing against an opponent. We would go lab things like the idea of like the Daigo parry. The reason that's exciting and interesting is because you're watching someone do something that you cannot do because he practiced how to defeat this very scenario perfectly with the proper punish to close out a game, and it worked. Those are moments that all of us dream of, and that to me is the difficulty that we want, what makes it addictive. Why, when I don't play fighting games, I play stuff like Trackmania. I play stuff where you have to execute something difficult and practice to get better, right? What he's talking about is something more like chess. In chess, you have to practice making decisions and recognizing scenarios and patterns. When you see an opening you're not used to, research the opening and how to beat the opening, and then try to play that opponent again and beat the opening. You know, that is what modern fighting games have done. They've distilled the games into scenarios, but the problem is the scenarios are incredibly punishing, and there aren't actual right answers because they're guesses. And because they're so punishing, you don't even get to learn the opponent and figure out how to beat the scenario. You just have to beat them in neutral. But then they take away the tools to play neutral because defense is boring. So you don't actually get to exercise real mastery. And you already, since 5, were robbed of your ability to exercise real technique for most of the cast. So it just isn't something to practice anymore. The pilots are all on bicycles instead of freaking jets, man. And it may be more fair. It may be more exciting to look at. It may require a different skill set. Oh, managing resources and finding your optimal routes and stuff. But that doesn't make it a harder game. It just makes it a game meant for a different type of person.
So, next example, just to help drive the point home. Aki. We love Aki. And while the character isn't just worse Bison, I will concede that she is probably worse than Bison. Anti-airs just aren't consistent enough, and the fact that Whip can be perfect parried is just... Alright, not the point. Much like Bison, already went over her in a whole video, plays like Bison, yada yada. I just want to focus on her unique mechanic. Her poison. Very similar to Gil's retribution mechanic in 5.
Yeah, it's like retribution.
That Gil comment has been by far my favorite comment on this channel. And a Gil video was written before I decided no. Back to Aki. After landing certain special moves, supers, target combos, or just putting a puddle on the ground that they walk over, the enemy gamer gets poisoned and turns purple. In this state, their life drains on their own, but they can't lose a round from this. And just like Bison, if you hit the Aki while you're poisoned, you cleanse yourself. Nice.
Alright, yeah.
But if you don't hit Aki, then it'll be around 7 seconds of life drain.
Okay.
Not as advertently strong as Bison's bomb, it is easier for her to get it, but it does put a timer on her opponent, further incentivizing them to go in. One is an additional bonus on offense after getting in, and the other's a smaller bonus for just winning an interaction. But there is more to poison that makes this comparison make a bit more sense. These moves apply poison, but if they're already poisoned, then you get this cool sound effect and trigger Toxic Blossom.
Yeah, that's a fun
which
effect.
is not the worst name when compared to Yasuo's Retribution. Extends your combos and gives her more damage. If you're poisoned, Aki gets better combos. And if you're not poisoned, now you're poisoned. She gets it from checks, from stray hits, even from anti-airs. She can even spend 2 bars to get it off. This mechanic is what Aki is all about. And now, just like Bison, Aki players have even more to think about with their combo routes. It's not as much of a decision for the players on defense against her. This isn't nearly as scary as having a Bison mine on you.
It's not as much of a decision for the defensive player, but the defensive player doesn't have very many decisions to make at all.
And now, just like Bison,
Okay, so he's hit up, counter hit, do the
Aki
thing.
players have even more to think about with their combo routes.
Combo.
It's not as
Alright,
much of a
lost like 40%. Safe jump. Now he can make a decision here to obviously get baited by a safe jump. Maybe he can try to perfect parry, or he's just gonna block.
Decision for the
Yep. Okay. And now Aki's still plus. He ever since that strike and ever since that mid kick, he hasn't been able to do anything. So we'll see what happens now.
players on defense.
Oh well, I guess you made a bad read. Actually, was that even a bad read? Were you just not blocking? He didn't go for a throw tech. I don't know what he was trying to do. Maybe try to walk forward. Yeah. Well, he loses now.
Against her, this isn't nearly as scary as having a Bison mine on you, but it still does change the risk reward.
Yep. GG. You're in the corner.
But because Aki trades
No
raw
dive.
damage potential for reliability, in terms of poison versus mine, this just means that you need much more awareness for your combo structure. On top of everything that you already need to consider in this game, you also have to check what is their poison condition. And more things to think about, more things for a character to be optimal, is additional difficulty.
It's not. Because you don't have to play either of these characters. Right? Like, people have been winning with Kin since the game's release. Kin doesn't think about anything as far as like this kind of stuff, extra systems and things like that, keeping up with whether or not it's optimal. And if we're talking about Street Fighter 6 being harder, then sure, you can make the same argument for Gil, right? You already did. You said Gil has Retribution, and Gil was also an ass character. So like that was hard, right? But even if you want to do that, we're talking about characters that have weirdo systems that are hard to play. Hakan. Wasn't Hakan the hardest ever? He was in Street Fighter 4 for God's sake. And he was hard as heck to play. You know, like he had to be oiled up. Jury, Street Fighter 4 Jury would be probably what the hardest then, right? Because you'd have this, plus you'd have Feng Shui Engine, which changes all your combos and makes your character weird. I mean, or we could go to Street Fighter 3. Like, do you want to charge partition a Opti Urien combo or else the whole character is ass? Because that you'd have to learn that. You have to learn to charge partition your optimal Urien combo, which is a very difficult technique, or else the whole character's ass. Or do you want to play Remy? Their Guile has to charge partition so you can have more than one projectile on the screen at once without EXing, or else that character is absolute ass. So it's like what are we talking about? That's a lot to think about. That's a lot to perform. Your body has to be able to do it. You have to put in hours of practicing something other people wouldn't be willing to do so that you can emerge from that stronger than them. That's what it is. You have to be willing to practice something other people wouldn't want to practice to emerge stronger. What this is talking about is an afternoon ad nauseum doing like, you know, poison combos. Okay, cool. And yeah, you could learn a bunch of poison combos, learn a bunch of routes. Maybe it'll take you a week to really get this kind of thing down if you're focused. The get down like the freaking Wing God Fist doesn't take a week. Not to do it off of like crouch dashes and wave dashes on demand while mastering all the movement mechanics of like Tekken 5 and 6. Like what are we talking about? See, this is the difference between our discussion. Once again, he's thinking about doing something in the moment, right? As like something to think about, like being aware of something and doing it in the moment versus training your body to do it. Because even if he's thinking more to think about, if you're thinking about your shit, then you've already lost. You should practice to where thinking doesn't happen, right? Like, oh, they're poison state. Okay, that should be so in the back of your mind that when they're poisoned, you just do the optimal, right? You just do it because you've already practiced it. So the thinking isn't there. And we're talking about practice versus practice. It is more difficult to practice your character in old fighting games versus new ones, 100%. And you know that's true because in older fighting games, few people ever had more than one main. You couldn't do it. Characters, especially if you were a character specialist, you took hours, you took days, you took months perfecting a character in an older game. Like, you could play Third Strike for years and continue to improve at that game.
Though why this character specifically is hard comes more from her instability. See the other video on difficulty. And that specific aspect of this game is the thing that makes Street Fighter 6 more difficult. Combo awareness. What should you be doing once you actually get the hit? When players first start out in fighting games, the first thing that they practice, the time sink in the game, is doing the combos. Getting in the muscle memory so that you don't drop and look like a real dunce. The equivalent of practicing your free throws.
Practicing combos is not what she's doing first play a fighting game. I mean, if you want to get good at it, like if you just want to play the fighting game, then you practice your combos, optimize your damage. But what you're going to learn is that you're not going to be able to create opportunities to get damage if you're not good at the neutral. For the longest time, I was like, and it's kind of embarrassing, but like in 5, I was hard stuck, like silver to gold, like for a long time, like upper silver, low gold for a long time. Just hard stuck there for like a year, 2 years. And I wasn't playing all the time, so like that's one thing. But what got me out was I would just go lab anti-airing everything until it became second nature. Then setting the computer to like dash, then jump in, and then setting Kin to like dash, then jump in, then like run kick, so I could react to each one. And then eventually my body just did it, so no one could jump on me anymore, right? Like, so once that happened, I immediately went up to plat because I'd already practiced the combo stuff. That wasn't anything serious. So I was just like, okay, well now, I can actually play. So I just immediately climbed to plat by being able to play defense. And then once you play defense, like all the other stuff, like with punishes and stuff, opens up because now your opponent will have to respect you. At least that was 5 though. In 6, your opponent doesn't have to respect you. Just practice your driver's combos. It doesn't matter. Damage is random.
But the game isn't the training room. You don't get fouled and get to shoot your free throws. You have to know what combo to use in each specific scenario. This has always been a form of skill expression. You don't just need to be able
It's not skill expression.
to pull off the combo, you also need to know which one you should be doing. But in Street Fighter,
So skill expression is when you express skill. It's when you do things other people cannot do. Like for example, if in the NBA someone gets a clear lane, if they want to 360 dunk, 360 reverse double clutch dunk or something like that, that's them showing off that they're really good at dunking. That's where they get to style on you. It's meant to be insulting or in some ways even an exhibition of one's skill because clearly they've worked very hard to develop the skill and want to express it. There is virtually no way a Street Fighter 6 player can show you they're better than another player. They can beat other players, but they can't show you they're dominant. And even their wins feel cheap because the game is very random and punishing. So if you get punished twice, you probably just lost.
6, this test of awareness and knowledge has really been turned up to 11. First up are the different states that affect your plus frames. Counter hits that add an additional 2 frames of advantage, changing your routes.
This existed in 5.
And now the brand new punish counter giving 4 frames of advantage. Not only do you need to recognize the opportunity for a hidden combo, but then you have to recognize what state they're in. You can't just autopilot after you pick which button will be your...
Yeah, but even the confirms in this game are easier. So for example, they actually show you like in big letters that they've gotten their state. Not only that, but like counter hits are typically planned and you always know you got a punish counter because they whiffed. Like if you hit them while they whiff and you get a punish counter. Now before, whiff punishes had to be buffered because you didn't know if you were going to get a whiff punish or not really. You kind of had to plan or make a space trap or figure like where you're in position to their best move and then try to nail that just by practice alone. Now, once you practice it, you still would, buffer it. but because it was low risk to buffer. But at the same time, nowadays, if they just throw a limb out there and it misses, then and I'm playing Bison, I'll just say, oh, there's a limb. I'm gonna scissor. All right, that's punish counter hit. What do? There's one button that works because you're +4. Oh, that's probably medium punch. Yep, sure is, dog. And then you do the thing your character does because your character is designed to do all of these things. Like, learning how to play a Street Fighter 6 character is not experimenting and figuring it all out. That takes like a few moments, because once you see all their frame data in training mode, you know exactly how they were designed to work, and there is no more learning. It's over. There's nothing weird to figure out. They're designed to work a certain way, to play the same way every game, so it can be fair.
Starter. Punish counter adds at least one more thing to think about. But
No,
that's
it's
not all.
You're not thinking about it.
Drive Rush normals
Why
give
aren't
you another 4
practicing?
frames of advantage. And Drive Rush is very important in this game. Additional awareness, an additional thing you need to think about, additional difficulty.
No. It's just cheap randomness. I was playing. Now Drive Rush isn't difficult. I don't know why he's talking about difficulty as far as being the attacker in this case, because when have I had to practice that? I didn't have to practice drive rushing. No one had to practice drive rushing, right? Like, you just press 4 parry and it happens.
But that's not it. Next up is the state your opponent is in. Are they airborne? Are they in forced knockdown? Did they get air reset? There are a lot of states in this game, and you need to know what is happening so you don't look silly. Are they in the air? You need to know your air combos, because unlike Street Fighter V, where it was just like Oro and Zim, you actually have air combos. Thank you, Drive Rush. Are they airborne? Well, now you need to stop your combo short because you're not going to hit them. You're going to whiff, and now you get whiff punished. For real, one of the most frustrating parts of this game is your target combo whiffing because of air nonsense. Much more to think about. And while the execution, the link timings, the mechanical requirement, the hands may be easier, the combo routing and the combo awareness is much harder.
Harder than what? Like, harder than what? Like, that's the thing. Harder than what? What are we comparing this to?
Understanding your starters, your extenders, and your payoffs. I refuse to play canines. But not only is this more difficult due to more thinking, it's also more difficult because it is far more punishing to misplay in combo routing in Street Fighter 6.
Yeah, it's very, very punishing to do anything wrong in this game at all, because the opponent didn't have to practice at all to kill you.
Previous games have had resources. Your EX bar,
That was trash anyway.
which would also end up being your access to your supers.
Look at this shit.
But because Street Fighter 6 has so much emphasis on your drive gauge, a miscalculated combo won't just mean a resource deficit in the next round. It may just mean you lose the game on the spot.
Yep. Do you want that? Do you want to lose the game on the spot?
You need to not only pay attention to the hit you got and the starter you opened with, you also have to look up here and down here. If you spend too much drive on your combo, then you are at threat of burnout and being put in a bad situation.
Are you? This isn't a bad situation. He still has a strike throw mix in the corner against a down Ryu with plus frames. Ryu still has the same exact options he had before. If Ryu wants to do a super or an overdrive and willing to take that risk, he can get out the corner. If he doesn't, he's going to probably take some damage. Blanca will still be able to get plus frames, just not the best ones, and still has a strike throw mix.
If you spend too much super on your combo, then you don't have any way of avoiding stun.
Ryu had to have actually get out that shit.
If you don't spend enough drive, you don't get the round. And now you open yourself up to losing because you gave them more opportunities to play. And if you don't spend enough super, then you don't burn your opponent out. And now they get free turns, extra damage, all these things you don't want. If getting it wrong is going to lose you the game, then you really need to get it right. You always needed to know your damage numbers, because if you didn't, you're gambling. But now it's much more important because a failed gamble
You didn't have to know your damage numbers. You didn't always have to know that. You had to be better. You used to have to just be better than somebody.
doesn't mean another chance for your opponent, but an automatic loss for you. It's not just combo awareness, it's also resource management. Resource management that changes from second to second. Life totals are changing, drive bars are refilling, and super gauges are going up. It's on-the-fly thinking. And
Yep, it's thinking. Fighting games aren't about thinking.
isn't that what we love about this genre?
No. No one loves thinking about their fighting game. They like playing their game. They like to practice and get really good at it, and then beat people that are not as good at it, and then find people that are better than it at them, and then practice so they can beat them. They like finding all the hard things to do and learning how to do those things and working really, really hard to master doing them under pressure and then do those things. They actually like the best fighting games you're ever going to play are not going to have this and all these gauges and stuff in them. Maybe they have like one gauge. This is why like I used to love Street Fighter 6 and I just get more and more disenchanted with it because I keep coming across the same thing and hearing these same arguments of like, you know, oh yeah, it's all about thinking about your resources. Like, resources are not what fighting games are about. It's not.
The real-time aspect of it, to make a split-second decision that could win you or lose you the game, we love testing reactions. This is testing information processing, something that I think is a little tougher. And while every character has...
It's not tougher. It's not tougher at all. It's different. It's not tougher. The thing is, right, so there's a reason why some of the best players in Street Fighter V are still the best players in Street Fighter 6, right? Both games are somewhat similar in ways, and the games both were resource-centric games. The V gauge was a resource. It meant something to use it for your V reversal or save it for your trigger. EX meter was a resource. Usually, if you were expending it, you were trying to get a corner carry or debating on whether or not to use it for reversal to turn the tide of whatever the situation was, so that +2 bullshit situation. Either way, right, like the players were always managing resources. Even in 4, we managed resources. It's just that we managed 1 bar instead of managing 2, because you didn't really manage your ultra bar. You could like focus through fireballs or specials to like gain some faster, but it wasn't something you actively were managing and spending to gain advantage. It was a one-shot move. I would say that like information processing being a skill, it's like, sure, you could say that, but it isn't really that difficult. So for example, if we're talking about BlazBlue, like you can see your drive gauge and your barrier gauge and your burst count all at once. Like, you know what's going on with your character. That game is still harder than this game, and it's got 3 gauges. The thing is that those gauges didn't determine whether or not you won or lost the game. It determined how offensive and defensively capable you were, and the opponent would know based upon how well they were pressuring you to wear out your barrier, or if you were barrier blocking, that you were more or less stuck in a block state, and they could figure out how to end their string or wrap it in to throw you, right? It was just, I just don't get what this whole thing is. It's almost like there's this plea of like, no, I'm serious, please, like my game is hard. Like, your game is, it's not as hard as other games. And I don't know, he still hasn't said hard compared to what? Are we saying harder than Mario Kart? Probably.
Has to do this.
Actually,
some
not.
characters need to think about this a little more. Like these two. Fighting games may be getting easier as time goes on, but not all aspects of them are getting easier.
What? So they're easier. Did we just waste an hour? Did I just waste all this time?
And we can take some solace in that.
Somehow, some way.
Oh my god. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to edit the shit out of this because it took way too long to get through this video. But shout outs to Coast Guard. This is actually like, this person is he's very well thought out in what he's in his opinions about things. He had a really well made video. I wish him the best in his pursuits on YouTube, because we need more, you know, fighting game creators and stuff. This is really cool. I do think that he's wrong. I think that he's wrong about difficulty, because I think that too often in modern gaming do we emphasize knowledge gaps versus skill gaps, and fighting games are a skill game. They always have been a game where you embody a character on screen, and the goal is to master the character, how the character moves and plays, and to create a mind-muscle connection with your interface where you can move and play your character better than your opponent can. That's what makes it fun. it's fun to get better at using the character. That will translate into you being better than your opponent at the game. Strategy and thinking about the game as far as resources. Well, what if we took the drive gauge and the meter out of Street Fighter 6? I argue it would be a better game. Because if you look at the character frame data, without that, you have a very similar setup as Street Fighter 5, just with no +2s or very few +2s. So you end up with situations where a crouching medium is like a +1 or +2. Crouching medium punch, I mean. That's like the 1+ frame move. Aside from that, you have to use your actual movement mechanics and fireballs and play just classic Street Fighter. And that game is still interesting to me. Like, Street Fighter is still good. Like, Street Fighter 2 is still good. Street Fighter 3 is still good. Right? And I feel like there's this weird kind of, I don't know if it's like a mind game or a kind of a mental trick people are playing on themselves to think that because they thought of the right answer or the optimal thing in the situation, like, yes, you can win a game that way. The game is designed that way so that you'll do the right thing and win. That's how the game's meant to be played, how Capcom designed it. Most players' problem with it is that every single thing they're doing in the game is exactly what Capcom has designed for them to do. Capcom hasn't given us anything to dig into, to improve upon ourselves with the character, to play and express in a way other players cannot, based on our effort, based on our continued resilience and digging in. My previous example of, let's say, C Viper Super Jump Cancel Ultra, right? Like, yes, it's a trick that's very difficult to do, but I've seen people win games off of it, off of straight standing light kicks. And that's something that, let's say, Mario could do that I can't do, that some of the stronger players in the game could do that I couldn't do. Hell, just playing C Viper, negative edge, cancel feints into super jump cancel, double seismos, right? That was so hard to do. So you see someone do that, you're just in awe of their skill, that they can do something that is so difficult that most players will never be able to do it. And that's when you gain actual appreciation for the character's skill level and the player's skill level, I mean, right? When you see players doing all the same things you're doing and you're just digging around like, oh my gosh, he made the right combo. How would he have thought that he should do the punish counter combo when he whiff punished? Like, yeah, that's what it's for. And it's designed exactly that way so that when you get a whiff punish, this exact scenario happens and you win the game. Yes, there are things like, let's say if you jab dolls him out of the air, how he enters a float state, and you can do like drive rush moves to keep the juggle state going for longer and stuff. Yeah, but that isn't difficulty. Difficulty is an objective measure, an objective flat line of how difficult the game is to approach and play at all. Not how hard it is to learn so you can win, but how hard it is to play at all. Inaccessibility is difficulty. That's what we want. I want fighting games to be inaccessible. I want to have a difficult game to play to where even if I'm just training, I'm seeing myself improve and get better. That's why I play games like Trackmania, because fighting games don't let you do that as much anymore. That's why I play flight sims and shit now. That's why I play all types of other games where you can get slowly better at something. And that's why I took up freaking bouldering, dude. Like, I don't want to climb rocks. I want to do hard shit in fighting games, but there's no hard shit to do. Oh well. That's all I got. Hey, thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I'll see you on the next time.